It didn't arrive as a breakthrough. It came as a quiet loss of interest. For most of your life, you knew how to read a room. You learned early who held the attention, what kind of voice earned respect, which version of yourself would be safest to bring forward. So you did. Again and again. Not because you were fake, but because you were careful. Careful not to say the wrong thing. Careful not to seem unprepared. Careful not to take up the wrong amount of space. You learned how to present yourself slightly polished, slightly ahead of your real thoughts, just enough. And people responded well to that version. They nodded. They smiled. They listened, which made it harder to stop. There was a version of you that arrived early to every moment. Before the conversation even began, it was already adjusting, choosing words, editing reactions, smoothing edges before anyone could notice them. You didn't call it performing. You called it being responsible, mature, aware. And maybe it was, but there was a cost you didn't name. At the end of certain days, you felt hollow in a way that had nothing to do with exhaustion. You could rest and still feel it. A thinness, as if too much of you had stayed outside, monitoring. Sometimes, late at night, when no one needed anything from you, the quiet felt unfamiliar, almost uncomfortable. You reached for distractions, noise, movement. Stillness felt like being seen without armor. There was no single moment when things changed, no confrontation, no decision made in bold letters, just a growing fatigue. You noticed it in small ways. How certain conversations felt heavier than they used to. How praise landed flatter. How being on required more effort than before. One evening, you stayed seated after the room emptied. Lights dim, chairs out of place. You didn't reach for your phone. And in that stillness, a thought surfaced. Not sharp, not demanding. What if I didn't need to be impressive right now? The thought didn't excite you. It relieved you. The next day, something ordinary happened. Someone asked you a question, one you normally answered smoothly. You felt the familiar reflex rise, the polished version preparing to speak. And then you paused, long enough to feel exposed, long enough to feel the room. You didn't give the best answer. You gave the honest one. It was quieter, less certain, incomplete. You didn't rush to defend it. The silence stretched. No one corrected you. No one applauded either. The moment passed, but something stayed. After that, you began to notice how often you used to rush, how quickly you filled space, how rarely you let your thoughts arrive fully before offering them. You experimented, almost accidentally. You let questions linger. You admitted when you didn't know. You stopped adding explanations to make yourself safer. Some people looked surprised. A few looked uncomfortable. You noticed who needed you to be impressive in order to stay close. You noticed who didn't. There were losses. Certain dynamics weakened. Some conversations lost their energy. But there were gains, too. Quieter ones, moments where you felt grounded instead of evaluated. Conversations that moved slower, but deeper. A sense of alignment that didn't need witnesses. You realized how much energy performance had been costing you. Not all at once, but steadily. And now, without it, you had margin. To listen, to think, to be present without managing how you were being perceived. You stopped preparing so much, stopped rehearsing future versions of yourself. You became harder to summarize, less predictable, and more yourself than you had been in years. You didn't lose relevance when you stopped trying to be impressive. You lost the distance between who you were and who you showed. There is a kind of authority that doesn't announce itself, a steadiness that comes from no longer needing approval as fuel. Maybe maturity isn't learning how to stand out. Maybe it's learning when you no longer need to. Maybe becoming yourself isn't about improvement. Maybe it's about subtraction. And maybe the truest version of you doesn't enter the room loudly at all, but waits until it's safe to arrive without performing.